I am trying the start button, but I don't really see uh,
It's being recorded, Julia. The
okay.
little thing popped up.
But the start button is where I keep seeing a small screen for that. So, and it doesn't go away when I press start.
What are you trying to start?
It's a small little pop up in the bottom right of my screen here.
Well, what are you trying to start though? You got the recording going. I'm sharing my screen with the slides.
Okay. Well, okay. So I have a little pop up that says start the webinar.
Okay. So yeah, I would hit start.
Yeah, I've done that several times. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I started broadcasting it when I came on, so I mean, I know it's being broadcasted.
Okay.
So it's happening.
I'm not totally sure what that start button's about. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, Liz, should we get started here?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Southern SOG's Growing Farm Profits webinar, Lessons Learned from this project, including the fairly new Livestock Compass. My name is Liz Young, and I'm the principal investigator for this project and formerly served on the board of directors for Southern SOG for the last many years. Today's webinar was developed to share the lessons learned from this 3-year project with livestock producers and farm service providers who work with livestock producers to get a better understanding of how to manage their livestock operations for profitability through the use of the new Livestock Compass tool. While this tool has been and will continue to be valuable to all livestock producers, those who raise multiple species of livestock and sell through multiple markets stand to gain the most. This webinar is made possible with generous support from the Southern Listserv program. In order to help us know a little bit more about the audience today and the current level of understanding of our topic, we have a quick pre-webinar survey for you that consists of 3 questions. Each question will pop up on the right of your screen as we launch the poll, and we'll give you a few seconds to respond to each question and then show you the results. Okay, and everyone has heard of Veggie Livestock Compass? Well, everyone has used it, and everyone wants to know more, which is a great sign about what the program you gain from using it. So before we begin, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background about Southern SOG. If you'll turn that slide there. The organization began in 1991 in Newmarket, Tennessee, with a group of farmers and farm advocates seeking to raise the voice of Southern agriculture to the national level. Since those early days, Southern SOG has a rich history of partnering with hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals in the 13 states across the South. The mission of Southern SOG is to empower and inspire farmers, individuals, and communities to create an agriculture system that is ecologically sound, economically viable, socially just, and humane. Because Southern sustainable solutions depend on the involvement of the entire community, SOG is committed to including all persons of the South without bias. We work in 3 primary program areas: sustainable and successful family farms, community food systems, and bringing the Southern voice to farm policy dialogue. Although our doors close for business on May 31st, we would like to say a special thank you to all the farmers, educators, and partners who have shared your knowledge and support in thousands of other ways throughout the past 29 years. You have helped shape SOG's legacy: bold, innovative, adaptive, and fabulous. Like the Southern sustainable farmers we represent, we understand the importance of fallow times. It is important for us to regenerate and renew the nutrients that feed our Southern sustainable agriculture movement. Anytime a viable seed is laid to rest in the soil, An amazing resurgence of growth appears, and it is our hope that of the many seeds that Southern Sog has sown throughout the region, what emerges next will be better than we could ever imagine. Now, a little word about Growing Farm Profits program. Southern Sog and our partners developed the Growing Farm Profits program in 2011 in an effort to help farmers get to the heart of profitability on their diversified vegetable farms. To date, over 500 farmers, future farmers, and farm service providers have participated in the trainings. Feedback across the spectrum of participants over time has indeed shown a positive impact on the farm profitability. Due to popular demand, we have expanded the scope of the program to include livestock and the Livestock Compass tool. This project was developed as a direct response to farmers who had asked for more information on 3 important items: record keeping, business analysis, and last but not least, profitability. Farm service providers requested this training. This project built on past Growing Farm Profits courses, but introduces 3 new improvements. First, management tools for livestock producers as well as horticulture crop producers. Secondly, the combined training of farmers with their service providers, supported by an online learning group. And finally, the facilitation of one-on-one assistance for 13 producers for a year after the course. We are excited, and I am honored to present 2 excellent presenters on the webinar with us today. Ellen Polishuk is passionate about helping growers around the country improve their soils, their labor management practices, and their businesses so they can increase farm profits and achieve a joyful, balanced life. Ellen has 35 years of farming experience and now devotes herself full-time to training and consulting other growers. John Hendrickson conducts research and education programs for specialty crop producers at the Center for Integrated Agriculture Systems at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. His work focuses on fresh market vegetable production systems, and he is particularly interested in farm scale as it relates to finances, labor, equipment, and management. John also owns and operates his own organic vegetable farm.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is Julia Sampson, and I've served many roles with Southern Sog over the past 15 to 20 years. I've enjoyed learning lots about Veggie Compass and Excel and profitability. The information has been useful for so many facets in life here. So before we get started, I'd like to give you a few logistics about the webinar. You can see a chat button at the bottom of your screen. There's also a button for questions and answers. We've got lots of participants. All lines have been muted. The webinar is being recorded, so we'll share the link to the recording soon after the webinar via email, and you can share it with your colleagues, use it for Christmas gifts, whatever. Feel free to ask questions and submit those questions all along during the webinar. We'll do a formal Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we'll be addressing your questions via the question box throughout. Go ahead and take it away, Ellen and John.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Ellen Polishuk talking to you from outside of Washington, D.C. in the Maryland suburbs. And also joining us is John Hendrickson. Say hello, John.
Hello, this is John here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this one. Okay. This particular version of Growing Farm Profits, I'm just going to repeat a little bit of what Liz already said. We had a few new twists to our normal, quote unquote, normal day and a half long training, which we'd done, I can't even say how many times, 10 times throughout the Southeast. This time, our idea was for a grower to be able to take on a new project that is challenging maybe in a technological sense, maybe challenging in a record keeping sense, that the chances of success of the grower taking the training and putting it into practice on the farm would be improved if we paired the grower with someone that they already worked with as a farm service provider. And so that's where this idea of what we call the grower service provider pairs comes from. It's an idea that that this would really have a good effect for the farmers. And so in order to foster that idea of this relationship between the two, Southern SOG offered a scholarship to any pairs that submitted an application uh, from anywhere in the Southeast, in the Southern SOG region. They were offered a scholarship to come to the conference at a reduced price, and that the training would basically be free. I think there was even some travel reimbursement. And so I don't know how many applications we had, maybe over 20 applications from a couple pairs. So these were people that formed their own pairs, a grower finding a partner in the service sector, farm service sector. And so that was the idea. We ended up with accepting and having 12 of these pairs show up to the training. And so these were going to be as I say here, our star students. These are the people we were really going to focus a lot of intention and energy towards, hoping to hold their hands towards being able to work with Veggie Compass on their farms. At the training itself, which was held in conjunction with the the Southern SOG conference, the normal winter conference, certainly the training was open to any individual that wanted to sign up and come. So anything, John, to add there?
Just that we had, in addition to people working on horticulture crops with Veggie Compass, we did also have producers who were there to engage with Livestock Compass.
Yeah. Okay, so we're here reporting to you what happened and how did it go. And so here's a little bit of how the event itself went, the training itself at the Southern SOG conference. So there were 95 people signed up, which is our biggest audience yet. I think we'd been maybe in the 70s at some other conferences, but this was a big number. And that there were a number of new challenges for us as presenters, not preventers, oh my gosh. So the first challenge is the normal one, which is we're trying to teach a lot of dense material in a fairly short amount of time. So we have lots to go over. But the new challenges were that we were having growers come in to learn about and use the Livestock Compass. And we'd never taught Livestock Compass at all. And we'd never taught them both in the same room at the same time. And so we had some issues we had to figure out how are we going to tease these people apart and just focus on Veggie Compass with the vegetable growers, and then focus on the Livestock Compass for those guys. It all worked out, but it took some thinking and some arranging. And of course, many growers were both livestock and vegetable growers, and so they had to figure out which one was their more crucial industry or enterprise. So along with this new livestock and horticulture combination, in this group of 95 folks, we had, of course, ran the gamut of levels of experience or numbers of years in the field, a vast difference in the levels of record keeping that were currently being employed on the farm. And something that's also important is that there were every kind of scale of farm represented in the room. So from a backyard garden almost all the way to, a 300-acre livestock operation. So that makes the room interesting and a little bit challenging as teachers to address so many different kinds of situations. So after the training, the theory was that these grower service provider pairs were to have constant and scheduled interaction throughout the season. We gave them time to meet as pairs in the room before we released them at the end of the workshop, so that they would come up with their a plan moving forward. But we didn't ask them to submit a plan and so we let them go off into the ether, and we waited, I think, too long before we started to try to engage with them. And I think that in retrospect, it makes better sense, to strike while the iron is hot, or while the information is fresh in their minds. And so I think it would have been better for us to be a more rigorous and kind of more bossy. Because that's not something I often have to say, is I should have been more bossy. And so what happened is, it's the South, and it's now, people are getting home from the conference. It's now February 1st, and they're already got a greenhouse full of stuff as vegetable growers, and off they go to plant, and if they're from Florida, they already are at market. So we kind of, growers just disappeared they just disappeared. And so we could have done some things differently to maybe hold on to them. It's hard to say, but in a perfect world, we would have trained folks, like in November. And then we might have had 2 months of kind of winter, as wintry as it's going to get, to have them have more time to spend in the office working with spreadsheets. So timing is always an issue. Anything, John, you want to throw in?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, Ellen. And you mentioned this, but I'll just highlight that while we asked them to develop some goals and plans, these farmer service provider pairs, we didn't have them actually turn that in, or at least you and I weren't privy to seeing those. And so it would have been helpful to have made sure that they had actually written some things down, so that we knew where they were going, and we could help follow up with, oh, you said you were going to do this.
Right.
Did you do that?
Exactly. Good point. Okay, next lesson. So in addition to the grower service provider pairs, another aspect of this project was to have a list, to develop 2 different listservs, one for the veggie people, one for the livestock people, where growers could be asking questions, relating their experiences, having triumphs, having trouble, whatever it was, and that there would be some sense of community about everybody who went to this training and who's gone home and dove into Veggie Compass. From a technical standpoint, at Southern SOG, we had some challenges with that. And here's the list of some of those technical challenges. Southern SOG didn't have a professional IT person on staff, nor did one get hired specifically to help us with this. We didn't have a budget to buy access to a rigorous or a deluxe platform, and so we were shopping for free services that turned out to be super clunky and difficult and off-putting to users. So even to me, somebody who wanted desperately to get in, it was just really clunky and didn't work very well. And so in the end, not much happened on the listservs with the 95 people who had come to the training. John and I would take turns throwing out sort of provocative questions, or like, hey, how's it going? Here's the weather at my house. What are you guys doing? How's that record keeping going? Are you tracking labor? And we could probably count on our 2 hands the number of interactions that occurred on the listserv. So that was not awesome. Bummer. Now I'm thinking, just out of curiosity, in this time where we are now, with so much communication and relationships being done on computers more than ever, I wonder if people aren't more primed I mean, what we would do is probably have freaking scheduled Zoom calls, you know, group Zoom, anybody show up who wants to, and maybe that would have worked better. I don't know. Okay. Number 4. Yeah. John?
Oh,
You want to
just
jump?
no, that was
Oh,
really good point that happenstance, we picked the wrong year to do the listserv.
yeah. And again, in retrospect, we might have chosen not the listserv, you know,
Yeah,
we might
right.
have chosen
Or
this really familiar kind of
or we
feeling.
might have started with a listserv and we might have done
Right.
something different once a pandemic hit.
Right. So we had difficulty getting interest and interaction. People were busy. Maybe farmers, you know, were not interested in divulging, you know, specific problems with their farm operations or with the financial pieces that might go into the Veggie Compass. And there's also the possibility that there are some farmers that don't have very good internet, for one, and that may not be using computers and email on a super regular basis. And so having a listserv is not really a way that they're going to be served. As we're talking about, well, maybe we could have had Zoom calls, that would have not been accessible to them either, right? I mean, I can't believe how many farms that I try to have Zoom calls with and they don't have the internet bandwidth to do it. They can only talk on the phone. John, what else did you have to add?
Yeah, one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about, given the current circumstances in our country, um, is that Veggie Compass and then Livestock Compass, was created by myself and Jim Munch, who are, white people. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about working with Southern SOG and doing these trainings was exposure to different types of people, different perspectives, different realities, different truths. And I would just like to say that I think and I guess can say we have a lot to learn about how to make this type of training and this type of tool more accessible um, to different audiences, and try to work to remove some of our biases about what works and what doesn't work for farmers. Um, a lot of these farmers, as Ellen said, don't have internet access. Maybe they don't have a computer. They don't have access to a computer. And so maybe we need to come up with different ways to do some of this type of training and work. So something I'm
Good.
thinking a lot about right now.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the bringing up super relevant right now issues and putting them on the table. Lesson number 5. Yeah, so here's this little deeper into what happened with these grower service provider pairs. So again, we didn't choose people and put them together. They found each other and then came to us and applied to be part of the work. And what we determined after, I don't even remember how many months, but we started to try to hunt these people down and find out what was going on. We haven't heard from you, what's going on? And in the process of trying to just even email or call these people, after, I don't know, 5 months, like some of them were not even in the job that they had had before. They were, loosely affiliated with 501c3 organizations. They weren't extension agents, uh, long seasoned 20-year veterans. They have an office phone. They've been sitting in the same desk for 20 years, right? We couldn't find some of these people anymore. Like they just disappeared. And of course, nobody told us about these things. Or we found that the pairs really never had much of a relationship with each other before they came to the training. And so, and somehow they didn't fall in love at the training, and then everybody went home and went back to their life. We also understand that in order for the service provider to then kind of hold the hand of the grower moving forward with Veggie Compass, they would have to become enrolled in the power and the usefulness of doing this kind of record keeping and analysis. And so it's possible that some of the service providers that we somehow didn't sell enough to them about how great this tool is and what its uses are and how to slowly step your way in to using it. Yeah.
And I would just add that, in addition to them, those service providers kind of needing to believe, I think probably most of them kind of believe in the overall concept of, improving farm management, improving profitability, but they also, in addition to that, kind of really needed to be better and more well-versed in the specific tools that we were hoping that these growers would glom onto, namely Veggie Compass and Livestock Compass. So there probably needed to be a separate, maybe more in-depth training with the service providers to make sure that they were up to speed on these tools.
Yeah, and we have done in years past, we have had trainings that were specifically and exclusively for service providers. And we've, and we did change the content of some of those because of their level of education about the importance of record keeping and all that stuff, and what makes up farm profitability. And it was more just getting them tuned into the tools that we were using. So that if we were to move forwards with growing farm profits, maybe that would be the next iteration to try, is like, let's do a day with the service providers and then let's do the next day with everybody together. Last piece. So what is the story? What's the end result? The end result of this specific training, we know that, I'm going to say this, we know that from all the trainings that we've done in the past, that the most important thing that happens is that growers have a new awareness about how profit is generated on their farm, or whether profit is generated on their farm, and they have an increased curiosity about what crops are actually carrying the weight, are doing the good work of bringing profit back to the farm. We give them some more, they leave with more confidence about sort of taking charge of their business and spending time out of the field and working on their business instead of in their business, which is, a common phrase. So we've heard over the years growers coming back to us and saying, hey, I never could get into the Veggie Compass, but I did this, and then I did this, and I decided to start to track labor on certain crops, or I really looked hard at my multiple enterprises, and I decided that beekeeping was not really doing it for me, or I really thought hard about the specific costs of going to this market, and I realized that taking home $500 after an 8-hour day was just never going to pencil out. And so those are the kinds of things we've heard over the years from growers who don't end up doing Veggie Compass. As well, we've heard people who eventually do come to it. They start keeping the records, just like we coach them to. they start keeping records, and then they're ready and they do dive into Veggie Compass, and we get to hear about it later down the line. John, you have any end results to tell? And you're muted. There we go.
Well, we do know that some people in the group did endeavor to start doing some record keeping and start doing some analysis. Our grant funding has kind of come to an end, and so we don't have a lot of super detailed concrete stories to share from this latest group of growers. It would still be wonderful to I don't know, I guess I hesitate to try to go back to that listserv, but it would be nice to somehow go back to all of the people that attended and find out what changes and/or impacts were made. But we have lots and lots of stories from growers throughout all the many years that we've been doing these trainings that it does take time. I mean, it even just to steal a line from you, Ellen, you felt you had to date Veggie Compass for a number of years before you were willing to make the commitment to really engage.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, that's just one of the realities of this, is that, it's kind of human nature. We take, we tend to take small incremental steps rather than huge, big ones.
Yeah.
Because we have lots going on in our lives, and farmers especially, given the craziness of the growing season. If you can change one small thing on your farm each year, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. Okay, we're ready to pass the baton back to Julia, I think, or Liz. I'm not sure.
Well, we do have one question. Thank you, Ellen, and thank you, John. This is rich information about the project, and it's great to hear how your reflections reflect the previous 3 years of this project. They're very good suggestions, which I hope can be implemented by someone in the next iteration there. We have a good question in the chat box here, and are you able to see that question?
Yes.
Yes, I did read it.
And
Thanks
maybe we should read it out just in case people can't see it or something.
Sure, I can do that. So a person wrote that they were not one of the paired couples that attended the training, but they were there. And this person has a small operation, just themselves, no employees, and so this all felt like a kind of a huge thing for them in terms of what to track, and especially given it was just themselves, they weren't having to track other labor, but they did develop some systems on their own farm, and are thinking that if they got larger, they might perhaps engage with Veggie Compass. But they're wondering if we ever thought of developing a Veggie Compass lite version. And I guess I'm assuming that this is Veggie. I suppose it could be livestock lite. I have thought about that, and Jim Munch, who is kind of the godfather of all compass tools, has thought about this as well. And I'll say two things. One is that we do definitely like the idea of a simplified version, and what we like to, the way we have begun thinking about that type of tool is that it would, a simpler spreadsheet tool would be the gateway drug to the more hardcore spreadsheet tool. So because once you start collecting information, and more importantly using information to make positive changes on your farm, it hopefully leads you down a path, a positive path, as opposed to a negative addiction situation, where the more you learn, the more you improve, the more you want to dig deeper and improve things. Where we struggle is what exactly a light version is. Do we leave out certain types of expenses because they're difficult to obtain? And if we leave things out, what does that say in terms of the information that you're getting if you're not getting a complete picture of the farm finances? Is that really something that you can use to manage your farm? So I guess I would be curious to the person who asked this question, what they envision a light version being. Maybe since this person is small and just works by themselves and doesn't have employees, maybe a less of a focus on tracking worker labor hours, which is a fairly, it's like the biggest hurdle in Veggie Compass, would be a place to start. Or maybe a light version is just, instead of allowing a person to put down 100 different crops that they grow and sell, maybe just a handful. So I would encourage the person that asked the question to either ask another one in the chat box or to follow up with Ellen or I in the future to tell us more about what that light version would look like.
Yeah, I think my answer is fairly similar to yours, John, and I would say, because people ask this question all the time. It's like, oh my God, it's so much. Can I just have a little bit of Veggie Compass? And the answer is no. That's my answer. My answer is no, because
that's the bossy Ellen answer.
Here she comes. Because this is called the whole farm profitability. That's the title. If you're not going to talk about the whole farm, then you're going to do an enterprise budget. There's lots of great tools out there that are not Veggie Compass, that are, I'm going to examine one crop at a time, right? Or I'm going to examine maybe one farmer, like I was saying, how much does it cost me to go to a farmer's market? So there are lots of good tools that look at little pieces, one little piece at a time. And the point of Veggie Compass was it puts all the pieces together and it looks at everything. I know another, a good tool that is a crop costing tool, one crop at a time. And just like enterprise budgets you see from Iowa State or wherever, it basically, instead of you telling it what your overhead is, it just is giving you kind of an awesome assumption of how much overhead you've got. Well, if your overhead is not what they assume, ain't gonna give you a good answer at the end. So that's where I fall so far, but sometimes I can't think expansively. And in this case, I haven't been able to come up with a light version that isn't just kind of a bunch of other tools that already exist.
Well, that was an expansive answer. And that was good information to know the difference between individually looking at single enterprise budgets versus looking at the big picture there. So
Yeah.
I learned something about that. Thank you, Ellen. I've got another question here about other modules of the compass. You have Veggie Compass, you did Livestock Compass. Are there other modules under development for fruit or nuts or anything like that? Orchards?
Yeah, so I'm still unmuted, yes. We have a kind of a growing suite of Compass tools. The other one that exists that can be used today is a tool called OGrain. And OGrain stands for Organic Grain Research and Information Network. It's a program run by a colleague of mine at the university here in Wisconsin. And we created the OGrain tool because they were wanting a tool to help grain producers understand the financial impact of converting from conventional grain production to organic grain production. And so this tool is we call it a Compass tool. It's actually quite different than the Veggie Compass and Livestock Compass tools, in that Veggie and Livestock Compass are what we call backward-looking tools. We just had a growing season, or we just had a year of raising pigs or pumpkins. And what happened? Did we make money raising pigs and pumpkins, or did we not? The OGrain Compass tool is a forward-looking tool in that it's looking at the process of converting from conventional to organic, which is a tricky thing because there are years when you're changing practices and your yields might suffer as you figure out new systems for weed management and other things. And at the same time, as you're maybe getting less yield, you're not getting that organic premium price in the marketplace because you're not certified organic yet. And so this tool is, the OGrain Compass tool is a tool to look at that over a 10-year planning horizon. Similarly, we are working on a fruit and nut compass, and it as well is a forward-looking planning tool, although you could use it to kind of assess the past as well. But given that fruit and nut crops generally involve a significant investment in trees, and then those trees take a while to develop and yield anything, and so you're going to be spending a bunch of money, and then hopefully eventually you're going to be coming back out of that financial pit that you dug for yourself and selling some things in the future. So the Fruit and Nut Compass is a 15-year planning tool to look at the costs and eventual sales of fruit and nut crops, and that was supposed to have been done last year. However, this I've had my hands on all the Compass tools to date, working in collaboration with Jim Munch and others. And the fruit and nut one is the most complex one that I have tackled. And so, and we've also dealt with some significant programming challenges within Excel to make, because we're allowing people to look at a 15-year planning horizon, growing as many as 12 different crops. We've had to do a lot of finagling to make it so that the spreadsheet is manageable and you're looking at one thing at a time as opposed to looking at all 12 crops over 15 years all at once,
Wow.
which would be a huge spreadsheet and impossible to look at and understand. So anyway, that's in the pipeline, and we'll be done as soon as I can do it. And then we also have a pasture dairy compass tool in the works, which is designed for people who run dairy farms and do rotational grazing of their cows out on pasture. And those are the ones currently in the works. Thanks for asking, Julia.
Well, seems like your plate is full.
Oh, and I should say that all of the tools are going to be housed and are housed at compasstoolbox.com.
Nice.
Currently, that website is under construction. So if you type that in, you're going to be taken to the old Veggie Compass website. But Livestock Compass, Veggie Compass, OGrain Compass are all there.
So that website again, could you repeat that?
compasstoolbox.com.
Sounds like an appropriate name and a good shed to have all of the implements under one shed there. That sounds fantastic. John, Ellen, I wonder if you have any success stories that you'd like to share with us. I mean, of people who have actually used this tool and learned something new, something eye-opening. This would give us something aspirational here.
John,
I've
go for
been
it.
talking a lot. You go first, Ellen, and then I'll do mine.
Well, I used the tool on my farm. And so as I've done these trainings over the years, the numbers that I speak from, that I make my slides out of, have all been from my own farm operation. And so for me, a number of different aha moments came around, and most of them were specific crops, determining that certain crops were actually more profitable than I had given them credit for, which made me love them way more, and including salad mix, which I hate as a crop because I'm not a nice lady sometimes, and I it takes too much time, but it really did pay off on my farm, and so that made me hate it less. Or to think to, on the other side, finding out that some crops that I thought were just guaranteed workhorses, like Swiss chard, were still taking a lot of time to harvest, wash, and pack, and that they weren't really nearly as profitable or just even break even as I had thought. So that's some experiences that came from my personal farm work with Veggie Compass.
My favorite success story example is from a farm in Minnesota that was primarily a community-supported agriculture system farm where they had members and join the farm and receive a box of vegetables. But this farm also decided to do a small amount of wholesale selling to their local food co-op. And they picked 8 crops that they were going to sell to the food co-op. And the food co-op was a great partner, and they got decent sales. But they spent some time with Veggie Compass and analyzing costs, and they realized that the, kind of unfortunate bad luck that the 8 crops that they had picked to sell to the co-op at the prices that the co-op was willing to pay were duds in terms of profitability. They learned at the same time using Veggie Compass that there were these other 8 crops that they could produce quite profitably. And they had a conversation with the co-op and said, can we not sell these 8, but sell you these other 8? And the co-op was totally willing to work with them on that. And so instead of, having these 8 crops where they were losing money on by selling them wholesale, they totally flipped the tables.
Nice.
And that, that's what the tool is about. What crops in what markets at what prices are going to make you some money as opposed to losing you some money.
And when you farm.
And just some other, maybe less specific examples of things that I know growers have learned is that, we've had people say, well, I'm a CSA farm, I have to grow all these different vegetables because my members, if I don't have these things in the box, my members aren't going to be happy. I kind of have to have this full palette of veggies. But some of the CSA farms that have used Veggie Compass, the way they've used the information is that they've said, okay, well, these 4 crops are really not very profitable. So yes, we're going to grow a little bit of it and put it in the box, but we're not going to put it in every week. We're going to limit the number of times we put that item in the box because we can't do it.
Or they decide to buy it.
Buy it from another farm?
Yeah, because then you know exactly what the price point is. And so
Yeah, a big example there is there was just some conversation on a local farm Listserv that I'm on here about organic potato production. And people are getting really frustrated with some of the pests issues. And one of the growers piped up and said, well, you can do this, this, and this to, fight the pests and grow some potatoes for your members. Or you can just call Eigel Farms and buy potatoes from them for way less than you can grow them yourself.
Yeah, good one.
Because this is an organic potato farm that's got it figured out.
That sounds fantastic, of growers sharing information with other growers and having the tools to know exactly what you're looking at when it comes to profitability and the bottom line here. Okay, so are there any final remarks you'd like to add?
No, I love ending just there. That's perfect.
Yeah, good to end on success stories.
Yeah.
I love hearing about success stories, especially during these times as we're able to get local food to local people, hopefully at a dollar amount that can keep farmers in business. That's the name of the game. Thanks so much for what you've done for us for the past 3 years and for this highly informed and content-rich webinar today. Our time is just about up. So to our audience, if you didn't get your question answered today, you can always email us at info@SAWG. That's info@ssawg.org. And we'll make sure you get your question answered. You can access a whole array of growing farm profits resources at the University of Wisconsin website. And John, would you like to say that website again, please?
CompassToolbox.com.
So that's CompassToolbox.com. Thank you, John. Thank you to all who participated in the webinar, and we hope to see you profitable and successful going forward. Bye-bye all.
Thank you.